Hello, class. I'm here in New York with Jeff Stabenau, who I know for a very long time now. We used to work when I was just fresh out of college. He came to me and he wanted a logo for a company that was doing something that I've never heard about, like digital video. That was really something so new back at the time. And it was actually called Digital Versatile Disc for a second.
For a second and a half, yes. Yes, yes, I'm with Giant Interactive. We've had a video tech services company for 15 years. And prior to that, I had a similar company called Crush Digital, which is where I worked with Amzum. And this was at the launch of DVD, which even at that time had two different names, Digital Versatile Disc versus Digital Video Disc. And we were involved in some of the earliest projects at that time, including a demo disc for Samsung that they included in their boxes for their players, so people would actually have something to put into it. And we started from there.
You explained everything to me what a DVD would be back then. How did you know about this?
Well, I was a video editor at the time, and I had a particular interest in video and interactivity. So both in the way that it was accessed and the way that consumers experienced it. And so when the notion of a DVD came out, it struck me as an opportunity that we could create experiences where video became sort of more personalized, maybe, in using the interactive features of the disc. And that was in 1996 when I had first heard about that. But at the time I was a video editor, so I went more into what became the DVD business, as it became known. But my initial attraction to it was trying to find out what it would be capable of in terms of its interactivity. You pointed out this disc. This is one of the first DVDs that was made, which was actually a demo DVD prior to the players being released. So this was for Samsung, and we worked on this at the time to create multiple angles with 6 different angles of a concert with 6 different subtitles, and just showing some of the features.
So they would put this into the box so people could actually play something with the player that they bought, because there were probably just a handful of other DVDs released at that point.
Yes.
And you decided to put all your investment in building this company, and then it kind of took off with Blu-ray, but all of these like physical formats are sort of gone now. It's a smaller market, but
it has evolved. But what's interesting to me as it's evolved is that I don't see it as changing as much as it sort of appears to have changed, because you know, in terms of the definitions of it, we get the formats kind of mixed up with the platforms, and they're actually very different things. So for example, formats, switching to a digital format. When I started working on DVDs, everybody was focused on the disc for obvious reason. But in terms of me working on it, I always thought of it as a digital file, and I still do. So oddly, I describe a DVD as a form of digital distribution. It happens to have a physical format that it's stored on, but the file itself that we create, we encode the video, we compress the video, we create the interface and the menus and do the programming, and then that happens to get stored on a disk, but it is a digital format. So as the distribution platforms evolved, we were able to take what we were doing and translate it into these new platforms. For example, in 2007, we started delivering video files to iTunes. And what we were doing to the video before sending it to iTunes wasn't really that different from what we did and putting it on a DVD format. We were compressing the video, we were checking the video, we were again putting together materials, box art, poster art, information, descriptions, and combining these into sort of digital packages and sending them to iTunes and then eventually other platforms. Now we deliver to
How many platforms?
about 120,
Really?
130.
Wow. Wow.
And surprisingly, there's subtle little differences between every platform, really, in terms of what they want. So as a company, we work with video distributors who want to get their content out to these different formats, you know, whether it's Star Trek or HBO is another client, or Neon is a client. And just to give you a little time capsule here, our client, Neon, won for Best Picture last night for Parasite. And so with Parasite, we're currently working on a high-resolution Blu-ray version for that, changing the interface, changing the menus for it. And
you mentioned the colors on.
Well, I mean, so that, yes, that's a good point. So with this format, it's called UHD Blu-ray. One of the things it allows is now going back to the format, it allows a high spectrum color called HDR. And this allows, I don't know, you know, many times more the color spectrum. And I think in the case of Parasite specifically, you know, its use of kind of subdued lighting and shadows within very brightly colored objects as kind of a focal point for the eye throughout the entire movie, with this added layer of color richness and complexity, I think it'll really give us more of a theatrical type of experience in that format.
In the future, where do you think this whole system is gonna go for how are we gonna watch movies or entertainment in general?
Right. Well, I mean, I think that the way that video has evolved, the distribution of video, is that the main changes have been to the different platforms, so that you know, your interface has become the Netflix page, the Fandango or Amazon.
And you can watch it anywhere you go.
And you watch it anywhere you go. So in a part of what's happened here is that kind of the intelligence behind the interface has almost become the most important part of the interface. For example, if you look at somebody else's Netflix account at their apartment or any of these subscription accounts, and you log in as them, you'll see an entirely different interface than you'll see.
Yeah, like my daughter watches different movies
Yes.
than I do.
Right.
Yeah.
And you and your anime and
Yeah.
all of that coming up, right? Probably left, right?
All of a sudden, I see all her shows coming up.
Right, right. And so the interface has been modified based on your use of it. And that's an important part of it because, you know, the real estate is limited. You can look at 10, 20, generously 50 objects
still
on a TV
overwhelming.
screen,
Yeah.
and you're missing 50,000 objects behind it. So that is a way of kind of steering it toward your behavior, what you're interested in. And in Anselm's case, I know that happens to be anime, because you used to design all of our DVDs that
The manga stuff.
were anime
And
related.
Gundam, yeah.
And recently, as a company, as a project, we worked on Ghibli Studios releasing their 24 or so titles.
For
digital.
European Netflix? Is
No,
it,
for
or-
on iTunes in the U.S.
Oh, it is.
and on HBO streaming service now.
Yeah.
So delivering to different platforms. Ghibli, which has some amazing movies,
Yeah, I looked into that, but then I figured I already watched them so many times.
But you can watch them again. And right, you probably had them on VHS when they first came
we
out.
have a lot of old Japanese tapes with them. Yeah.
Right. So in terms of the interface and where that's going, I was speculating that one of the ways that this might evolve is that potentially blockchain could become an added part of the
Blockchain technology?
yes of the it could become an added part of the format and well more of the digital distribution platforms themselves. So when iTunes came out and other platforms followed suit, you would buy the movie for $10 or rent the movie for $5 or those types of transactions.
Right.
That evolved into more of a format we have now or environment we have now with streaming platforms. So you have Hulu and Amazon and Disney Plus and HBO Max. And I think part of the reason that subscriptions caught on was that digital ownership lacked a certain clarity of who owns this particular file, where with blockchain technology, you could start to implement it so that you literally owned that file the same way that you own this.
Right.
And you could transfer that ownership, you could transfer that ownership again,
Right.
and it has a...
But there's only one ownership and you can't really rewrite that.
If that was what that blockchain technology was implementing, then yes, you could start to create an environment where you had certainty of digital ownership.
Right.
Now, I don't know what implementations that would necessarily take. That's for probably
Or any kind of digital art too, you mentioned before.
you know, it could work for example, right now you have a show from Bruce Nauman who's doing his latest video art installation piece, or Aida Ruvula,
Yeah.
and
An old co-worker. Artist.
And you could take those those finished pieces, and they could have a limited edition of 20 copies they were selling or distributing. And in that way, you could have literal ownership of the digital file. And that's what blockchain allows you to do, really, is create a distinct path and certainty in terms of its digital ownership. So that's one possibility for digital distribution going forward.